Why are animated walk cycles important, and what makes a good walk cycle? I'll start with the obvious. We need our characters to walk from place to place to help progress the story forward. But the real reason why a walk cycle is so important is it says something about our character. A character is what they do, not what they say. In building the actions of a walk cycle, we are given an opportunity to express not only the physical requirements, but also the emotional state of our character. We have an opportunity to say something about our character through their walk. Hi everyone, my name is Alex, and I just talked about why a walk cycle is so important. And that is, it says something about our character. So what makes a good walk cycle? Personality is the most important aspect of a walk, because it says something about your character. The better you are as an animator, the more you can focus on personality. The new animator has a harder time with personality because you're trying to get the character to move and cycle without popping. We've all been there. And that's where technique comes in. And that's what I'm going to focus on in this video. Technique is the second most important thing when creating a walk cycle. When you're new, technique takes up all your focus. But as you improve, the scale shifts to prioritizing personality. That's the goal. There are two main principles of animation that allow us to get personality out of our characters, and those are posing and timing. For posing, we think of contact pose, the clarity, the shape, the lines, the silhouette, and the exaggeration of a pose. For timing, we think of the speed of the walk cycle itself. We also think of varying the speed of the different parts of the body within the cycle. We also want to consider how our character relates to other characters in the scene. We're going to consider posing and timing in our technique as well as we build the walk cycle. I'm going to jump into Blender now and demonstrate a walk cycle for you. Let's do it. I'm going to use Ellie for this demonstration. She's a character from the Blender movie Sprite Fright. I had no involvement in the film, but like the design of this character. Let's first start by setting our workspace. Let's come on over here to animation. And what I like to do is have this window on the right be my main camera that I view through, and this one be my work window. Down here in the dope sheet, I'm going to hit Control Tab, and that's just going to take us to the graph editor. Let's also pull up our timeline so we have access to that. And I don't think I'm going to be working with the side panel, the properties there, so I'm going to also move that to the side. So I'm just going to start hiding some stuff over here, just cleaning up this view window. And then for here, I don't need this camera. I'm going to get out of that, and I'm going to show all my controls in this work window. I'm just going to build a little ground plane so we have something for her to stand on and walk on. So we have the character in our scene. The first thing we want to do is just think about what kind of walk we want to build. And for this demonstration, I'm just going to build a simple generic walk cycle. I think that's going to be the easiest to learn from. And then from there you can push it, pull it, and exaggerate it in any which way you want. Once you have an idea what kind of walk cycle you want to build, whether it's a happy one, sad one, confident walk cycle, you got to start posing. So we're going to start that right now. My hands are in IK, so I'm going to switch that to FK. In the properties over here, we're going to come to the cloud rig, and it's under settings, and it's FK IK switch. I'm just going to turn the two hands from IK into FK. Let's just turn on the layers for this as well. And we want to see our FK, perfect. I'm going to want to see my fingers because I'm going to pose that quickly. Let's also shorten our time frame here. Let's go 24 frames. I'm going to hit A, select all, A in here, select all the keys, and I'm just going to delete that. So a generic walk cycle, a typical speed is 24 frames, and that's what we're going to do now. If we make this walk cycle something like 18 frames, 16 frames, that becomes a very quick walk cycle. If we go 32, 36 frames, 48 frames, that becomes a very slow walk cycle. So 24 is right in the middle, and is a good starting place for anyone to start from. Okay, so let's work on the pose. And in Blender we have this X mirroring, so I'm going to turn that on just at the beginning while I pose her. Perfect, nice and simple. Just going to add a little bit of shape to these fingers, nice and quick. Okay, so nice little starting pose for the fingers, and we can always adjust those as we actually get into it. I'm going to turn this X mirroring off now and start working on that contact pose. So I'm going to pick a leg and just pull one forward and the other one back. Perfect. Now, what we want to look at is the more distance between the 2 feet, that bigger the step's going to be. Also, it's going to be harder to animate. That smoothness between the contact pose and the foot going back and then back again to continue the cycle, the bigger the gap is, the more finesse you need in order to make that cycle look smooth. The shorter that gap between the feet are, the easier it's going to be. So just keep that in mind. So for the first foot here in the front, that toe's going to come up. Perfect. And then for the back one, it's the opposite. So now the heel comes up. And what we're after is we don't want any straight knees. We want to avoid that. So you can see if I pull it far enough, that knee lock up. So just before it locks up, that little bit of curve is nice. Let's go over here. Same thing, pull it back. And there is a good distance, something like that. So we have a pretty good distance between the 2 feet, dictated by that bend in the knee. Just that little bit of bend tells me that's a good spot to stop at. Now with the arms, everything on the bottom half is in one direction, then everything on the top half is in the opposite direction. And that's how the walk takes place. So here we have her right leg forward. So we're going to have her left hand forward in this one. So I'm just going to start posing that out. Nice and simple. I really like this technique of building the pose and then playing with the timing because it allows me more finesse to dictate that personality. Now I'm going to start to think about the effect it has on the chest, maybe the COG, maybe the head as well. Thinking about the subtleties so that when I mirror the pose, there's a little bit of movement. For the COG, I'm just going to add a little bit of rotation, not much. There we go. The chest is going to have just a little bit of rotation as well. Again, not much. And I can always tone that down or up as I see the cycle progressing. So I've rotated the COG and the chest, in this case 2 degrees to her right, and so that also turns the head a little too much. So I'm going to turn the head back for this one pose. Okay, I'm still looking at the pose, so I'm spending a good 4 or 5 minutes just on this pose. I'm going to start to include a little bit of the shoulders here. So this shoulder is going to go back just a little bit. Perfect, not much. And this one's going to go forward a little bit. Okay, so here's our pose. We spent a good 3-4 minutes posing her in this idea, and I think it looks good. I'm going to hit A to select all the controls and hit I, and that inserts a key. Normally what happens when you hit I, you get that menu, and that menu asks what do you want to insert a key on. How you don't get that anymore, how when I hit I, it just keys what I want. You got to be in object mode, and you go to object, animation, and you got to change the key set. And so I like to put it to location rotation. So now when you go back to your armature, you select all, hit I, it's always going to key those 2 things. So in the graph editor, hit A, selects all, and then period numpad just to frame for it. So we got this one pose and we just keyed everything. We selected all the controls and inserted a key. And now what we're going to do is we're going to come to frame 25 and also hit I, insert a key. And you'll notice that the key on frame 1 and the key on frame 25, they're the same. That's important in a walk cycle. The first frame and the last frame, they need to be the same pose. As we build the walk cycle, we're going to be adjusting either the first frame or the last frame. And when we make an adjustment, we always copy it to the other frame. So it's always the same. The other thing that's very important in a walk to remember is whenever the foot contacts the ground, to the moment it leaves the ground, that portion that it stays on the ground is a linear move. That translation back should be linear. So those are the 2 main things on a technique aspect that needs to happen in order to build a seamless walk cycle. So at the beginning we have frame 1, and here I'm going to insert a key on frame 13. So what we have is from frame 1 all the way to frame 12, that's the first half of our walk, and then from frame 13 all the way to frame 24 is the next 12 frames of the second half of the walk. Frame 25 is just a repeat of frame 1. So when we set our timeline as well here, I don't need to see frame 25 because it's a duplicate of frame 1. We have everything selected. Let's come in over here. We have this key. It doesn't matter. All 3 keys are the same for now. And you're going to highlight one of them, hit Control C, and then hover where you want to paste this next bit. And I have it on hotkey to paste flip. So you get some options where you can copy the pose and then you can paste the pose, or you can, in this case, paste flip the pose. And where you find that is under key and paste flip. So let's click that. And you saw that your hands and your feet, they swapped. They mirrored each other. Hit A in my graph editor, period numpad, and you can see what's going on here. We have this pose at the beginning, frame 1, and frame 25. They're the same. Frame 13 is just the opposite of those two other frames. I'm going to hit A, select all, and V, and just go vector. Right now I'm just going to set everything to linear. And let's just go ahead and play it. Okay. So getting to this stage is a big deal. It's a big deal because you've made some decisions on what kind of personality you want, and just getting the pose, pasting it from 1 to frame 25, and then flipping it on frame 13. Just getting here is very important. From here, you make some big decisions. Remember, we talked about personality. Now we can start to think, okay, what is the personality that I want, in this case, Ellie, to have? And when we talked about personality before, there are two things that we can consider: the pose and the timing. Let's focus a little bit on the timing right now. So this is a generic timing, a generic walk cycle. If I was to walk right now, it'd most likely be at this pace. That's about a second. We take 3 steps in the span of a second. Or we contact the ground 3 times. And let's suppose that I thought this walk cycle, with the same pose, I thought it lacked maybe some energy. So a very quick way to do that, instead of affecting the pose to make it larger, to exaggerate the pose, maybe make the stride longer, the hands swing more, you could do that. But in my case, I might want to just tighten the timing, speed up the cycle. Let's make it a 16 frame walk cycle. So I'm going to grab these 2 last frames, and I'm going to go frame 8, frame 16, and then I'm going to play frame 17. Remember, frame 1 and whatever your last frame is the same, but I'm not going to play that right there. Frame 17. Oh, pardon me. There we go. And I'm going to make this 16. So what we have is 8 frames and 8 frames, and then that frame 17 is a repeat of frame 1. So let's go ahead and play that. And already Ellie's walk is snappier. Maybe she's being pursued by someone, so her pace just quickened. So that's how quickly we can affect her personality. She's more nervous. Or let's take the opposite idea. Let's make it 36 frames here. Let's select these last 2 keys again. And we'll come on over here to frame 18 and then make this last frame, frame 37. So let's play that. Now she's more mellow, just in her timing at least. So let's put her back to a generic walk cycle at 24 frames. So let's put this back to 12. This one back to 25, and then this can go back to 24 frames. Those are some of the big decisions you're going to make. Once you get to this stage, and it's just cycling, you're going to make the decisions. Do I affect the pose? Most likely. And do I affect the timing? The timing, once you're happy with the timing, you're going to stick with them. But the pose, you can keep refining a little bit. I'm going to show you a quick way to exaggerate the pose a little bit. So I'm going to select all, hit A, and I'm going to come on over here to my first frame. I'm just going to select that, Control C, and just move over a little bit, Control V. Same pose being held. Here's what I like to do. I like to use the computer to help me exaggerate my pose a little bit. Once I've defined what the pose looks like, and I'm pretty happy with it, I can still refine the pose. And typically what I do when I refine the pose is I put a keyframe and then another keyframe beside it. And I'll pull and push and do whatever I need to refine the pose. And then I flip back and forth. And I decide, is this pose stronger? Does it have better shape, line, clarity, silhouette, whatever it is? And if the answer is yes, I keep the new pose, I delete the old pose. And I might do that a couple times. Another method as well is I can use the computer here and go V and just go automatic. You saw right there that the pose just elongated a little bit. It stretched out. So what it is this keyframe and this keyframe, they're the same. Between them is a spline, and the computer takes the information from this keyframe and it goes into this keyframe and it overshoots here, basically is what's happening. You can see the graph right there. So I use that information just to elongate the pose. Sometimes it really gives you a nice feel. So now I'm going to scrub over here, and I kind of already like what the computer's giving me based off what I initially had done. And I like this space between her feet a little more, and I like the gap in her arms a little more. So I'm going to keep that. I'm going to insert a key, I'm going to delete this frame now. Delete this frame. I'm going to move this over. I have to refine the pose a little bit because now the legs are too stretched. So I'm going to do that. Just a little bit. There it is, right until that knee starts to bend just a little bit. And then this back foot can be pulled in just a tiny bit there. Okay? So this is my pose and I'm happy with it. And you saw a little bit of technique to refine the pose once you've identified parts of the personality within the pose and timing. So I went back, refined the pose a little more. Okay, I'm going to hit A, just insert a key one last time, Control C, copy, and then coming over here, Control V, paste. You saw those little changes that were just made? First frame and last frame, they need to be the same. So I copied and then pasted. I'm going to come in over here and I'm going to go paste flip. And you saw those changes as well. Okay. So V vector. And remember, paste flip, it can be found under key, paste flip. So just what we did right here is a big deal. It's a big deal because once you start moving past this point, it's hard to refine the personality. Here are the big decisions that you're going to make that are going to be very broad. You haven't committed much time, and yet you affected the outcome to a greater amount right here just by posing and timing. What we're going to focus on now is the foot contact. So we're just going to do one foot, let it cycle, and we're going to refine it. Once we're happy with that foot, we're going to paste it to the other foot. Then we're going to go to the COG, find that cadence really, that up and down, and then work a little bit on the upper body, work on the swing in the arms, refine the head a little bit, and this walk cycle's done. So here we go. Let's focus on this front foot. That's what I like to start on because this first half of the walk cycle from frame 1 to 13 is going to be linear. Everything on the ground needs to, in terms of the movement back, needs to be the same. I'm going to hit A, hit period numpad, and you can see what the graph looks like here. This right here, this green line, if I move it, you can see all that is affecting the movement of the foot back. That's the only thing that's really being keyed, even though I have other channels. But that's the one curve that's being affected right now. And it's linear. And so that's contact in the ground. And then here, when we scrub forward, you can see that the foot just starts to move forward. Here we're going to start to add an arc so it smoothly comes back. And then it does a little bit of an S shape, really, is what it's going to look like. Here it's going to be flat and straight, and then a bit of an S curve. What I like to do is over 2 frames, come down. So I'm going to select that heel and toe control, and I'm going to reset it. I'm going to grab that key, and I'm just going to make it vector. And again, I put all my hotkeys, instead of going V and then vector, I just put it over here on Q again. Sometimes that's really nice because even in here I did that as well. So speeds me up a little more. I'm going to Control C, copy that pose, or you can just come in over here and reset the value and hit I. And really what I'm doing now is the foot, this one control, this heel control there, the foot's in the air, the toe's in the air, over 2 frames it contacts the ground. Now it's flat, 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 and then it starts to, the heel starts to lift. And this is what this value is here. So the only 2 controls being animated right now is this one foot control, which goes back and forth, and this heel up and down, and the toe up and down. Those are the only 2 controls. Okay, so we're looking at this front leg here, this one right there. Foot is contacting the ground, perfect. Starts to be lifted. As it's being lifted, I'm just going to make that flat tangent there. Cool, and I think it can start lifting a little sooner. Awesome. So all I'm looking at is this front leg and how it's looking while it's on the ground. And I think that's looking good. Now, so the first half of the step is done. Now we got to work on the second half to get it back to its original spot so it can cycle again. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come back to my foot control, see the curve, and what I like to do is just pose it out and then refine the pose. And I just realized that my middle pose is on frame 12, which isn't the true center. So I'm going to select all the controls, just grab this key and move it over 1 frame. So now it's 12 frames, contact, 12 more frames, and it repeats. So frame 13 there. So let's focus on the second half of this walk cycle. So we have the first half, which is the contact on the ground, and it's linear. And for the second half, I like to just pose it out and then refine the pose. I go every 4 frames now. So here from frame 13, I'm going to go 4 frames over to frame 17 and just refine that pose. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull that leg back. And really what it is this leg is starting to roll over so it can come forward. Something like this. Don't be too precious. Just go ahead and pose it, and you can always refine it. Cool. So it's just starting to lift here. It's coming straight back. And now let's take a look at the pose, or pardon me, the graph editor. So I'm going to grab this. I'm just going to make this auto clamped. I can select which curve I want here, Shift H, and take a look at it. Make sure that's vector, so it's straight. And then you can see there's a little bit of a bump here, and all I'm going to do is just straighten that out. So now the curve is smooth and it's coming back and then back into place. So here's what that looks like as I scrub over. You can take a look at this back foot. So it's coming on the ground and it's rolling over. That's where most people are going to have some issues, is where there's a little bend in the knee and all of a sudden the knee is straight. And when the cycle happens, you see that popping. So that's what we're going to avoid. But it's normal at this stage to be seeing that. And I'm aware of it, and that's what we're going to refine. Okay, so let's keep going with the pose. What I like to do now is come over here to my last frame. So this frame and this frame are the same, but you can see the curve is going down this way. And the curve on getting into that pose is coming up. So I'm just going to make that flat tangent and actually even inverse it a little bit. So now as it comes into the cycle, it's going to come a little more smoothly down. Let's go ahead and play that. Cool. So it still looks very rough because it is, but we're refining just the one leg. Okay, let's keep working on it a little bit. And then we're going to paste it to the other leg. Then I'll work on the COG. And once the COG gets involved, I'll go back to the leg and make the final adjustments. And so I went 4 frames. I'm going to go 4 more frames to frame 21. And I'm going to work on this pose. This leg is too high in the air, so I'm going to pull that down. Keep it low to the ground, something like this. Insert a key. Okay? So this leg is getting somewhere. Yes, there's some popping, but that's okay. And I want to see everything here, so I'm going to go Alt-H, just show everything. Let's start pasting it to the other side. Select the foot, select that heel, just those 2 controls, A to select all, period numpad to see everything. I'm going to hit Control-C to copy, and go to your other foot now. Select this, and I'm going to delete these other keyframes at the end, and just leave this first one. And I'm going to go to my paste flip, and you can see it's basically matching. Cool. Everything is here. I'm going to go Control-C and Control-V. Perfect. Select everything again. And remember, frame 13 is the middle. So I'm going to remember what this keyframe kind of looks like and move that frame with everything selected to frame 1. So everything selected, I hit A, and I'm going to hit G and move that back 12 frames. Perfect. So here we have the beginnings of our walk. Once you add that bounce in the COG, it starts to come alive, and it's going to help in the refinement of the knees as well. So let's do that. I'm going to select the COG, select everything, and frame for it. I'm going to hit A and make everything auto clamped. So I'm going to smooth it out. So the foot contacts the ground, and then the foot toes contact the ground on frame 3 here. I like to go a couple frames after, and that's where really all her weight is being taken. And just drop that down. I to insert, perfect. And all I care about now is seeing this translate, this up and down translate. So I just set a key, and now I can see it in the graph editor. So she's taking that step, and she's taking that weight a little bit. I'm just going to push that weight down a little bit more. Perfect. Nice. And I might even lean it this way a little bit more. So it just stays down a little longer before we go back up. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm going to select this one key here, Control C, and this was 4 frames, so I'm going to go 4 frames from here to frame 17, Control V, and it's a cycle. So let's play that. Cool. So that's looking really good. Feels like she's stepping. And what I'm going to do as well is just delay that weight coming down a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is select the 2 keys, and then with Control, deselect the key and the handle, and just leaving this handle here. G to move it, and X to keep it on that one axis. And you can see just by pulling it to the right, I'm keeping her body, her COG, up a little higher, and then it's going to come down just a little bit more forceful. Cool, and I like that. Okay, the next thing we want to do is just look a little bit at the rotation. Let's go over to our chest control, and really the chest and the head, they're still vector, still linear. So I'm just going to select all the keys and make them auto. Let's go back down here, and we're going to start to affect the hips as well. You're not going to notice her hips, and they're not going to have as much impact in the appearance, but a larger character, a heavier character, you're really going to see that weight. You're going to see when that weight's being taken, the hip on that one leg that's contacting the ground is going to go up. It's going to play a bigger role. But here's what I would do. Kind of the same timing as when the COG goes up and down, roughly would be the same timing there. I'm going to keep this one quite simple because it's generic and she's a simple character. Perfect. I'm going to copy that, Control C, and go 4 frames over. And in this case, I'm not just going to paste it, but I'm going to paste flipped. So it goes the other way. Cool. It's starting to look pretty good. I'm still seeing a couple things that are very evident to me. The legs, obviously, and the chest is feeling stiff. So I'm going to start focusing a little bit on the chest area, and then going back to the feet before I move up and finish the chest area and the hands. So let's come on up here. As the hands go back, the chest is also rotating in that same direction, but I'm going to add a little bit of delay here. So the chest is leaning this side just a little bit. I'm just going to delay that rotation a little more. Insert a key, so it's delaying there, and then it's going to go into that next pose a bit quicker. Somewhere in here as well, I think I'm going to have her chest go down, not by much. Perfect. I'm going to delete this one key, I don't need it. And then delete this key here. So I'm going to come in over here and do the same thing. Nice, just keep it there a little longer, automatic. I like that. I'm going to select this one key here, Control C, come on over here to the other side, Control V, and it's going to paste it there. So that chest is loosening up a little bit. Once I add the arms and the shoulders, it's going to really loosen up. But I'm happy with that for now. And let's go back and focus on the legs and get those cleaned up. So here at the leg, I'm going to focus on that Y translate, which is the contact on the ground. Remember, this one just slides forward, and when it's sliding on the ground or moving, it's always going to be the same speed. This is what that curve looks like. Straight, linear, and then like I was describing, that S curve. Here's what you're going to want to do from time to time, just to make sure that your first frame and last frame are the same. Go to frame 1, and then go to frame 25, and just by moving back and forth, if you see any movement, then just copy and paste it. In this case, there was no movement, so the 2 keys are the same. Let's try to figure out what some of the issues are that's causing the popping. So here you can see that frame 3 straight leg. Okay, so that's one area. Let's keep scrubbing, and then we have knees bent, and then 2 frames here of pure straight, and then 1 frame quickly where the knees bent. So we basically have 3 frames that are giving us some problems right now. And we have a couple ways to deal with it. We have the foot speed itself and location. We have that heel control. And now we have the COG and even the hip control. So there's 4 things that are going to play a role in getting rid of that knee pop. So you just have to play with those different things and get rid of that knee pop. So here on frame 3, I could keep this one leg up a little bit more. So I can delay this one contact a little bit more. That's one option. And that almost did it, except now it looks a little strange. And here's what I'm going to do. Maybe move this over, insert a key, and together have it contact. It's almost there now. So do what you can. Know that you have those 4 things that affect the knee pop now. So that took care of that one. We're coming in, and now we're knee straight. Just increase the value here Okay, that took care of that. Maybe I'm gonna lower her COG just a little bit as well. So I'm gonna select all those 3 keys there and just barely move it down. Perfect. That might just do it. There we go. Okay, looks like that beginning pop is gone. We're coming over, and then there's one big pop there. I kind of got rid of all the knee straights, and then there's this one big one that stands out. So let's try to mitigate that. So maybe what I'll do is just pull that out more, and with this one curve selected, key only selected curve, and grab this one and just pull it back a little bit. I'm now going to add just a little bit of toe drag, not much, just as the toes being lifted right here. Insert a key, and as it's swinging forward, just barely add a little bit of toe drag, even just a little bit more here. Insert. Remember, whatever you do to the last frame or the first frame, you have to then paste to this side. Perfect. And now this one can come up and spank the ground a little harder. Okay, that leg's looking a lot smoother. So select the 3 curves now, this one and then that toe one, perfect. Select all, awesome. Control C and come back over here. I'm just going to insert a key on that beginning frame. Remember, this one we pasted more because we cycled it, but opposite. So I'm going to delete all those keyframes except the frame 1. I'm going to keep that one, and now I'm going to paste flipped. Perfect. Select all, go to the last frame, and Control C, Control V. You can see what happens after you start to add more detail. When you copy your cycle and then paste it on frame 25 so it repeats, frame 1 and 25. When I pasted it, it ruined the curve a little bit on this side. Let me demonstrate again. It ruins the curves a little bit. One way I found that does a good job, I have my 3 foot controls selected, and I'm going to insert a key on frame 24. So when I paste into 25, it meets frame 24 and it doesn't affect anything after that. I found that to be a nice way of controlling my curves. Select all, Control C, and Control V. Perfect. Select all again. Remember, frame 13 now needs to go to frame 1. Okay. So her legs are looking a lot smoother now. So that's a second pass. And maybe I could do one more refinement pass, but already with that COG influencing the legs, I now have more information to go back to the legs. Okay, let's focus on her shoulders and her arm swing, a little bit of her head, and then the cycle's done. I'm going to focus on this side. For some reason, I like to focus on whatever leg or foot is in the front. I find that easier for me. I'm going to start with the shoulder. Everything's still vector from the beginning. I'm just going to make it smooth. And just like we did with the chest, when it's rotating and it's coming back, I delayed it. I'm going to do the same with the shoulder. So as the shoulder is at its peak, forward, and then it's coming back, I'm going to pull it forward a little bit more, and I'm just delaying it. And doing that just adds a little more oomph to your animation because you're dictating the timing. So I'm going to go to frame 5, and all I'm going to do is rotate it forward just a little bit. Forward and maybe up. Just like that. Then it's just going to swing naturally back. And same thing when it's back, I'm going to delay it. And in this case, I might even pull it down a little bit and rotate it down. Something like that. Cool. And that's all I'm looking for. Then I'm going to take it one curve at a time just to see what it's coming in and out of. So this one's doing its thing there. Oh, that's just the translate. That's okay. I think the translates are good as is. Yes, they are. Let's look at the rotates. So you can see, here's a good example. I'm just going to clean this up a little. It's coming into this rotation, then it's flat tangent, but then it goes down. What I'm going to do is select the 2 keys and rotate them. just enough, so then it smoothly goes into the cycle again. Doesn't have to line up 100%, but it does help when you at least avoid the flat tangents. So it's just that shoulder that I'm affecting. Yeah, I think that looks good. And you can see the difference here. It's very stiff. And there it has a little more life to it. A little more life because it's breaking out of that mold. It's overlapping a little bit, and that helps. Let's go to the upper arm, and let's even select the elbow and then her wrist. So everything was still vector from before, and I'm going to make it smooth, flat tangents. Same thing as before, same thing as the upper chest and the shoulder. All I'm doing to the upper arm and then the elbow is as it's coming out of a pose, I'm just delaying that pose, affecting the timing and the posing, but really it's the timing. Here we are at the front, and I want her arm to swing forward a little bit. All my timing for the most part happens over 4 frames. 4, 4, and then we're into the half. In this case, I'm going to start delaying the overlap. Okay, so normally I'd be on frame 5, just 4 frames. I'm going to go 1 frame over and just pull her arm forward a little bit. That's all that needs to happen. And on a bigger character, or even on a more energetic character, I would start to think about the curve in the hand at this point. But this one's a generic walk, and just keeping it simple I think is okay. Okay, so all I've done is pulled that arm forward. I'm delaying her arm swing. Perfect. Insert a key. And that's what it looks like. It's just overshooting a little bit. And then her arm swings back. And same thing. I'm going to delay her arm. Not much, just a little bit. And maybe over here I'm going to open her arm up. Just a tiny little bit. Cool. So there's her arm swing. Now let's do the elbow. Just like all the other ones, I'm just delaying that pose a little bit more. There we go. Just having fun with it. And then her arm swings back, and there's going to be a really nice big delay right there. Cool. Just like we've done with the other ones, I'm just going to make sure the start and end go into each other a little better. Cool. I think the beginning here can be bigger, that bend. Cool. And then even this one could probably last longer. And what this curve is here is that straight, when her elbow goes straight. Cool, I like that. Cool, so that's looking good. Let's do her wrist now, and then a little bit of her fingers. So the wrist, just like all the other parts of the arm, again, we're just delaying a little bit. And each time I'm moving a frame further away, so that rotation is amplified. And then the wrist goes this way, and a little bit of rotation there. Cool. So for the fingers, I'm not going to do much, but I'm just going to add a little bit of drag to them. Like I said, not much, just a little bit so you can feel it. Cool. And I forgot to also smooth out the fingers. So I'm liking the way her arm is looking. So let's go ahead and select her shoulder, upper arm, elbow, and everything to do with the hand. Copy those keys, paste flipped to the other side. Select all that in the graph editor, hit A, Control C, come on over to the other side and do the same selection. Perfect. I'm going to delete these 2 keyframes here, just leaving that first one. And being on frame 1, I'm going to paste flipped. Perfect. And this part's always fun, just to see either the foot or the hand working together. That's always kind of fun. Cool. Just like we did with the foot after we refined it, I'm going to go 1 frame from the end to frame 24 and insert a key. Hit A, select all, Control C, go to frame 25. Remember, frame 1 and 25, they're the same, and paste it over there. And so that frame 24 that we just inserted protects all the curves over here. So that's what the purpose for that is. Select everything, Here's frame 13, and I'm going to make 13. I'm going to move everything over up into the point. This key is at frame 1. So G and frame 1. Perfect. So Ellie's walk is starting to take shape. It's looking pretty good. I'm going to work a little bit on her head, and then we'll add a little bit of jewelry animation, a little bit of ponytail animation, and we'll call this cycle done. Oh, pardon me. And then we'll have her moving forward, so I can show you how that works as well. For the head control, I'm going to keep it simple, and I'm actually just going to do just a little bit of rotation forward and back. So as the COG goes down, the chin's going to be delayed up a little bit. Insert a key. It comes down, the COG goes down, then the head goes forward a little bit, just like that. Control C, and go ahead and paste that. Don't need this keyframe, delete, and delete. It's just that rotate X here, just this red curve. Okie dokie. Let's focus on her earrings a little bit, her ponytail, and we'll call this walk cycle done, and we'll make her walk forward as well. Let's turn on her clothing. Layers, clothes, perfect. For the clothing, it's just nice and simple. Don't overdo it. So I'm going to select just the one earring for now. Frame 1, insert a key. Frame 25, insert a key. Frame 13. So that's my timing. So the body's just about to go down, and I'm going to delay her earring just a little bit. So it's rotating up. Perfect. And then it's going to rotate down just a little bit. There we go. Control C, copy that, and paste that as well. There's a little bit of rotation on her earring, just to give it a little bit of life. That's how quick that was. And if you don't like it, because it's so quick, you can undo it. Try something else. Select all, Control C, come on over to this side, and first you just have to insert a key. There we go. And now we can paste flipped. You got to be careful because it does start to tween. So you might not want that, and I might just go the other way a little bit, or just tone some of the values down, or add a different type of rotation, just so it's not the same. But in this case, toning it down seemed to help, so be aware of that. Okay, let's take a look at the ponytail. Let's turn on hair, perfect. And same thing for the ponytail, I'm just going to keep it very simple. Hit I, insert a key, 25, I, 13. So let's go ahead and just add a little bit of delay, a little bit of drag, not much. Cool. Insert key. And a little bit of delay. Again, not much, because we don't want to draw attention to itself. All right, so here's Ellie's walk cycle. And it's a nice simple walk cycle. Took about 30 minutes to get here. And this is what I would consider a first pass. At this point, I would show the director or the supervisor and get notes on the walk. Is it hitting the right personality? Do we like how it's working with other characters? And then I would refine again. So with this method, you can iterate on different versions quite quickly. Let me show you how to get Ellie to walk forward in space. That's really important that these characters look good while they're cycling, but also can walk forward in space. So let's do that together now. Really, there's only one way to get this character to walk correctly, and that's at that foot control. You can see this curve here, how it's linear on the ground. That's the speed that we need Ellie to walk forward at. What I'm going to do is just select this curve and copy it. Control C. What we're going to paste it to is our Y translate. So I'm going to select the Y translate, just isolate it. There we go. And Control V. And it's just going to paste it there. Okay, let's start scrubbing. And all of a sudden, Ellie's walking forward, and then Ellie's walking back. So all I did is copy that exact curve from the foot and pasted it to her move all. And now what we have to do is just keep this key and keep this key. Everything else we're going to blow away, just like this. X, X. We have the curve, which looks great, and then you can see there's no foot slipping on the ground because the translate value is the same. So we've nailed that part. Now we just have to continue that curve. So here's how we do that. With this Y curve, let's come in over here to modifiers, and we're going to add a cycles modifier. And after mode, we're going to go to repeat with offset. And we can even do it at the beginning, repeat with offset. So now it's a continuous line. Okay, that's very exciting. Let's add a few more frames of Ellie now. So we're going to go A, select all, deselect the move all control there. We're going to go to frame 1, insert a key. I'm just going to make sure, I'm sure everything's keyed, but I like to double check. Go to frame 25, insert a key. I'm going to go to frame 24, also insert a key. Perfect. I'm going to delete these. And all those extra keys were on the side was when we copied and pasted the foot control, when we paste flip the foot and hand control, offset it. That's what those keys are. We have everything. A to select all, control C, go to frame 25, control V. And I'll do it a couple times. We have 4 seconds. I'll just go 96. Awesome. And here we have Ellie walking forward in space. I'm also going to show you how to present it. So I'm going to create a little runway for Ellie, and I'm also going to create a little box. If I was to present the walk cycle stationary, I might animate the box with that same curve value moving the opposite direction. In this case, this box doesn't need any animation because Ellie is moving forward through space, but I'm just going to create a couple markers. Shift D, we'll just give it a little value. Perfect. Awesome. Alright, that's it for this demonstration. We have Ellie walking and she's walking through space. If I had multiple characters of different sizes and I needed them to walk together and still have a dialogue, you could achieve that by making sure that foot contact speed is the same between the two characters. Remember, you can affect the pose and the timing to achieve that speed. So either quicken up the timing or increase or decrease the stride length to achieve that overall speed, so then the characters are walking together. I hope you enjoyed the video and got some value from it. If you did, please like it so that I know this content is useful. Okay everyone, bye bye.